The stars vanished in an instant. One moment, the dark sky beyond Vanguard Outpost was calm, the mining lasers cutting silently into the rock. The next, shadows swallowed the light as massive alien ships slid into view, their hulls black as void, their shapes like predators gliding in for the kill. Captain Elias Kane stood frozen at the main viewport, the glass trembling under the first tremors of weapons fire. Out beyond the station's thin shield, explosions lit the asteroid belt in quick, violent flashes. The defense platforms they had spent years building were gone in less than 2 minutes, shredded into drifting metal dust. No warnings, no demands, just death. The comms were dead before Kane even reached the console. Long-range arrays had been cut clean through by precision strikes. There would be no distress call, no request for reinforcements. They were alone. Across the control room, crew members worked with frantic hands, rerouting power, locking down bulkheads, shouting over the deep, bone-vibrating hum of the alien fleet's weapons charging again. The second volley came fast. Kane felt it more than he heard it, a crushing force through the station's structure. Red emergency lights bathed everything in a bloody glow. "Shields are gone," someone yelled, but Kane already knew. He could feel the air pressure shift. The station was bleeding atmosphere into space. His first officer, Leora, burst in from the engineering wing, her hands black with grease and her hair clinging to her damp face. "We've sealed most sections, but the outer decks are lost," she said, her breath ragged. "We need to get people below." Kane nodded once. There was no time to argue. The aliens were moving with surgical precision, cutting away life support, isolating sections. They weren't destroying everything at once, they were hunting. Then the strangest thing happened. The main fleet began to pull away. The huge dreadnoughts turned, their engines flaring, and one by one they jumped into hyperspace. Kane knew better than to hope. The swarm didn't leave survivors. Not unless there was something worse still coming. That was when they saw it. A single vessel detaching from the retreating fleet, gliding forward with deliberate slowness. It was unlike the others, smaller, sleeker. The hull smooth and seamless like black glass that drank in the station's light. Along its flanks were faint, shifting patterns, almost like the rippling skin of some deep-sea predator. The sight made Kane's chest tighten. He had heard whispers in military reports, rumors shared in mess halls. This was a Purge-class warship, the kind sent to wipe out any trace of life after a main assault. It didn't just kill, it erased. Leora's voice was low, almost a whisper. "Its scan pattern, I've seen it before." Kane glanced at her. "From where?" She hesitated, frowning at the readings on her portable scanner. "It's familiar. Parts of it are almost identical to the AI cores we used in old mining drones. It's like..." Her voice trailed off. The ship rotated slightly, and a dozen ports along its hull slid open, each one glowing faintly, targeting arrays. "It's like someone took our old tech," she finally said, "and built this monster from it." The ship began its descent toward the station, its scanners sweeping. Kane didn't wait. All remaining personnel, deep shelters now. His voice carried over the emergency network. The corridors filled with people running, some in work suits, others still clutching tools, their faces pale under the red lights. The warship fired, not at the main habitat ring, but at small life support clusters, vaporizing them in silent surgical bursts. It was picking apart every place a human could hide. Kane led a group down through a maintenance shaft, the narrow passage shaking with each distant impact. Every time they thought they had lost it, the sound came again. Faint at first, then building, the ship's sensor beams sweeping the tunnels, searching for heartbeats. Leora was at his side, moving fast, her eyes fixed on her scanner. "It's not just looking for us," she murmured. "It's studying us." Kane almost asked what she meant, but then a shockwave tore through the tunnel ahead, spraying them with fragments of shattered rock. Through the settling dust, he saw movement. Landing struts unfolding from the Purge class's underside as a boarding probe touched down just meters away. "Back! Move back!" Kane shouted, but Leora was already moving toward it, her tablet clutched tight in her hands. "Cover me!" she yelled over her shoulder. The security team didn't hesitate. They opened fire, drawing the probe's attention, forcing its turret to pivot toward them. In those seconds, Leora reached the probe's exposed access port and jammed her tablet into it. Her fingers flew across the screen, her face lit by the alien machine's pulsing blue light. The warship hesitated. Its weapons froze mid-target. Leora's voice was urgent but steady. "Captain, it's in there. Our code. Buried under alien programming. They didn't erase it. They couldn't." The deck shuddered again, the ship fighting her intrusion. "It's fighting me," she said through clenched teeth. "But it's listening." Kane didn't understand how or why, but in that moment he knew one thing. If she was right, this ship wasn't just their executioner. It could be their salvation if they could turn it. And as the warship's lights flickered uncertainly between alien red and soft human blue, he realized they might have just taken the first step. The warship loomed over them like a living shadow, its black hull gleaming wetly under the faint station lights. Every instinct told Kane to drag Leora away, to run deeper into the tunnels before the thing recovered. But she didn't move. Her fingers were a blur over her tablet, cables dangling from the access port, her eyes locked on the streaming alien code that scrolled across the display. Sparks jumped from the connection, and a low, vibrating hum pulsed through the floor. Behind them, the security team kept up steady fire, their shots sparking harmlessly off the probe's armored plating. But it kept turning toward them, almost sluggish now, as if distracted by something unseen. Leora's voice was tight but urgent. "It's not just remembering, it's confused. Half of it wants to follow alien orders. The other half is waiting for human input." Kane's heart pounded. "Then give it that input." "I'm trying," she shot back, sweat rolling down her temple. "But my system isn't strong enough. I need more processors, more devices." Kane turned to the group of survivors crowding behind him in the tunnel. "Anyone with a datapad, a comm tablet, anything, pass it forward. Now." There was no hesitation. People dug through packs, pockets, and tool belts, pulling out battered old devices, portable scanners, even stripped-out control modules. They were passed hand to hand, shoved into Leora's reach. She linked them in a makeshift network, the cables tangling across the metal floor. The warship's lights flickered again, this time in a strange rhythm, like it was breathing. The turret froze mid-turn, the targeting laser fading. The hum deepened, vibrating through Kane's boots. Leora didn't look up. "It's letting me in further. The core code, it's ancient. They copied it, buried it, and built their own commands on top, but they couldn't change the foundation. The house is still ours if we take the keys." A deep, mechanical groan echoed through the tunnel as the boarding probe retracted suddenly, folding its struts away. The ramp leading up into the warship's interior lowered with a hiss, releasing a blast of cold, filtered air. The survivors froze, staring at the dark opening yawning before them. Kane felt every eye on him. He stepped forward slowly, his hand resting on the rifle slung across his chest, and looked at Leora. "Is it safe?" She glanced up at him, her face pale but her eyes burning. "Safe? No, but I think it's curious." Kane looked back at the others. "We go in. Grab whatever supplies you can carry, tools, med kits, food, and stay alert." The ramp was smooth beneath his boots, almost too smooth, like walking on polished stone. Inside, the corridor walls glimmered faintly, shifting in subtle ways, the texture changing under the light as if it were alive. The floor rippled gently under each step, adjusting its shape. Kane reached out and touched the wall. It was cool and hard, but when he pressed harder, it softened slightly, reshaping itself around his fingers before returning to its original form. The deeper they went, the more unsettling it became. The ship seemed to be studying them as much as they were studying it. Panels slid open and closed on their own. Soft lights bloomed along the walls, then dimmed when they passed. Leora walked just ahead of Kane, her tablet still tethered to the alien system. Streams of code continued to scroll across her screen. It's mapping us, she murmured. Learning how we move, how we breathe. The alien code wants to flag us as threats, but the human base keeps labeling us as crew. They reached a wide chamber that felt like the heart of the vessel. Displays, some alien, some strangely familiar, glowed softly around the room. In the center, a raised platform pulsed with dim blue light. Leora stepped up and placed her tablet on it. The displays flared brighter, and a sound like a low chime echoed through the room. The floor shifted under their feet, forming curved seating that molded perfectly to human shapes. Kane's pulse quickened. It's changing for us. Not just for us, Leora said quietly. It's deciding. The deck suddenly shuddered, and a harsh red glow swept through the corridor they'd come from. Alarms in an alien tone wailed faintly in the distance. Kane's comm crackled to life with the voice of one of the security officers. Captain, movement outside. 2 swarm scouts just dropped from hyperspace. Looks like they're here to check on their pet. Leora's eyes widened. If they connect to it remotely, they'll see everything we've done. Kane's voice was steel. Then we make sure they can't connect. He turned to the others. Lock down the entrance. Arm every weapon we have. The ship's lights pulsed between red and blue, faster now, almost like a heartbeat in panic. Kane could feel the tension in the air, the machine caught between 2 masters. Leora's hands moved quickly over her tablet, her voice urgent. I can force a handshake protocol, make it answer only to human command, but I'll need to cut it off completely from the alien network. Do it, Kane said. The floor vibrated, the walls flexed, and the lights flared once, blindingly bright, before settling into a steady blue glow. The alarms outside cut off mid-tone. Somewhere deep in the ship, heavy doors slammed shut with the sound of locking bolts. Leora let out a shaky breath. It's done. They can't reach it anymore. Kane stared at the glowing displays, then at the survivors gathered around him. For the first time since the attack began, he felt a flicker of something dangerous in his chest, hope. He looked back at Leora. Can it move? She glanced at her tablet, then gave a small, tired smile. It's asking for coordinates. Kane turned toward the viewport at the far side of the chamber, where the 2 alien scouts drifted against the stars. Then let's give it a target. The ship's deep hum rose in pitch, the deck trembling under their feet. Outside, the black hull rippled, vents sliding open to reveal weapon ports. The Purge-class warship that had been sent to kill them was no longer just their enemy's tool. And as Kane watched its systems align on the first alien scout, he realized something. The ship wasn't hesitating anymore. It had chosen a side. The first alien scout never had a chance. The warship's weapons lit up in a sudden, controlled burst, blue fire tearing through the black of space. The scout ship's shields flared, failed, and then it split apart into molten fragments that spun away into the dark. The second scout tried to turn, its engines burning hot, but the warship moved with terrifying speed, gliding into its blind spot as if it had always known it would run. One more shot and the second scout was gone, vanishing into a flash of light and drifting wreckage. Kane stood at the viewport, hardly breathing. The survivors were silent, their faces pale but wide-eyed. This ship had just destroyed 2 enemy craft faster than any human vessel could hope to, and it had done it without hesitation. Leora was watching her tablet, her fingers dancing over the screen as if she were guiding the ship with nothing more than thought. It's responding faster now, she said quietly. It's like, it's learning from us. Kane turned to her. How much control do you have? Partial, she admitted. The alien code is still inside it, still pushing back, but the human base is growing stronger every time I give it a command it can follow. It wants to protect us, but part of it still thinks it should be killing us. Kane's jaw tightened. Then we make the human part win. They moved deeper into the ship, mapping its strange and shifting corridors. The walls weren't fixed. They rippled and bent, reshaping themselves into doors, storage bays, or smooth passageways when they approached. It was unsettling, but also incredible. Every so often, Panels opened to reveal alien technology fused with design elements Kane recognized from old human ship schematics, things from before the war. The stolen origin of this machine was everywhere. In a central chamber that Leora called the bridge, curved displays floated in the air, showing tactical readings and system maps. Kane could read some of the layout, energy flow, shield modulation, weapon status, but much of it was alien script. Leora, somehow, was reading both, her eyes flicking between the lines as if they were two languages merging into one. "It can fabricate," she said suddenly, tapping a rotating image. "Not just ammunition. Anything. If we give it raw materials, it can make food, medical supplies, even spare parts for our own gear." That news spread quickly among the survivors. For the first time since the attack began, people were moving with purpose instead of fear. Small teams returned to the ruined outpost in shifts, bringing back crates of rations, tools, and broken metal for the ship to process. Inside the fabrication bays, the alien matter shimmered and shifted, shaping itself into familiar human forms, water canisters, clean bandages, fresh power cells. It was like watching a living thing grow objects from nothing. But it wasn't all smooth. Every few hours, the lights inside the ship would flare red, and bulkheads would slam shut, trapping people inside rooms until Leora could override the locks. Sometimes the atmosphere would thin suddenly, forcing them to scramble into suits before pressure normalized again. The alien side of the AI was still fighting, still trying to see them as intruders. On the second day aboard, Leora called Kane to the bridge, her face tense. "We have a problem," she said. "It's still transmitting status reports to the swarm. If those reports get through, they'll know exactly where we are, what we're doing, and they'll send the fleet." "How long?" Kane asked. 32 hours before the next transmission cycle," she replied. "But I think I can fake it. Feed them false data. Make them believe their warship is still wiping out survivors." Kane's eyes narrowed. "And if you can't?" She didn't answer right away. "Then we'll have a very short future." They worked without rest. Kane handled logistics, assigning survivors to bring in resources, guard the corridors, and keep watch for any approaching ships. Leora stayed on the bridge with a small group of tech-minded colonists, weaving their devices into the alien systems. Each time they forced a new link between the human base code and the ship's controls, the red warning lights faded a little longer before flaring up again. It was like slowly tipping the balance of a scale. As the hours ticked down, the tension built. The ship seemed restless, its hum deepening, its lights shifting between blue and red as if it was arguing with itself. Kane could almost feel it thinking. Finally, with less than an hour before the transmission, Leora leaned back from her console, her eyes bloodshot but her smile sharp. "Ready." She tapped the final sequence, and a low vibration passed through the ship. On the main display, a burst of signal shot out into the void. Encrypted, scrambled, and packed with false kill confirmations. They watched the data stream vanish into the black. Kane turned to her. "Did it work?" She glanced at her readings. "As far as the swarm knows, their ship is still on mission, and we're all long dead." The lights inside the bridge shifted, slow and deliberate, to a steady blue. The constant vibration in the deck plates eased to a softer, more even hum. Kane exhaled. Leora looked at him with something like awe. "It's not fighting me right now. I think it's trusting us." On the central display, a new image bloomed: star maps, patrol routes, highlighted corridors of enemy movement. Routes no human had ever seen before. Weak points in the swarm's hunting patterns, places where they could strike without warning. Kane stared at it, a slow smile forming. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was an opportunity. They had a weapon the enemy could never expect. A warship that knew all of the swarm's secrets, one that could move like a shadow through their defenses. He looked back at Leora. "Plot us a course." She hesitated. "Where to?" Kane's smile didn't fade. "Hunting grounds." The ship's engines rumbled deep in its core, and for the first time, Kane didn't feel fear in that sound. He felt anticipation. The Purge-class warship turned in the darkness, its black hull blending with the void, carrying its new crew toward the first of many kills. The ship moved through the darkness like it had always belonged there, a shadow among shadows, silent and deadly. Kane stood at the bridge viewport, watching the stars drift by, the hum of the engines steady and sure. On the displays, a cluster of red markers pulsed enemy signals. The first target was a swarm supply convoy moving along the outer edge of a dead star system. 3 cargo haulers, lightly guarded by 2 escort frigates. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a suicide mission for a small crew. But they weren't using a normal ship. Leora leaned over her console, her voice calm but sharp. I've tied into their predictive defense systems. The ship knows exactly how those frigates will move before they do. She tapped a sequence, and the tactical display shifted, showing the convoy's escort ships changing position, only for the warship to slide into perfect angles to exploit their blind spots. Kane could see it. The alien AI side of the ship still understood swarm tactics, but the human base code had learned to twist those tactics into traps. The crew prepared for battle without panic, each person moving with practiced focus. Security teams checked weapons. Engineers monitored the hull's adaptive plating, ready to redirect energy to shields at the first sign of return fire. There was no need for a rallying speech. Everyone knew what this was, payback. The first shot was almost beautiful. The warship slipped into the convoy's shadow, venting a short burst from its thrusters to match the escort's drift exactly. One of the frigates adjusted position as predicted, and in that small moment the warship struck. A beam of blue energy carved clean through the frigate's main reactor. The explosion was silent in the void, but the light painted the bridge in a brief, cold flash. The second escort panicked, moving too far from the convoy in an attempt to flank. That was its last mistake. The warship fired a cluster of guided projectiles, each one bending its trajectory mid-flight as if they were alive. They slid through the gaps in the frigate's shielding, detonating in perfect sequence along the hull. In less than 30 seconds, both escorts were nothing but drifting wreckage. The cargo haulers tried to scatter, but they were slow, built for transport, not speed. The warship cut their engines with pinpoint fire, leaving them helpless. Kane didn't order their destruction. Instead, he sent the boarding team across. When the survivors returned, their arms were loaded with alien AI cores, weapons, and crates of technology. But the real prize wasn't metal, it was data. Leora was already sifting through the captured systems, her eyes wide as she scrolled through encrypted files. They've been cataloging every engagement with human forces, every weakness, every tactic we've ever used. And they have coordinates, supply lines, fuel depots, even shipyard locations. She looked up at Kane, the excitement in her voice impossible to hide. We could tear holes in their fleet. Kane didn't hesitate. We're not just going to tear holes. We're going to make them bleed. The crew fell into a rhythm in the days that followed. The warship struck fast, hitting convoys and isolated patrols, then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. Every victory strengthened the bond between the crew and the ship. The adaptive interior stopped sealing doors on its own. The lighting remained a steady, soft blue. The AI responded to human commands without hesitation. Sometimes Kane thought it was almost eager, like it wanted the fight as much as they did. But even as they struck blow after blow, Leora warned him that the balance inside the AI was delicate. The alien programming is still there, she said during a quiet moment on the bridge. It's not gone. It's dormant. If something strong enough triggers it, it could come back. Kane nodded, but he couldn't bring himself to slow down. Every attack bought breathing room for human colonies. Every destroyed swarm ship meant fewer enemies on the hunt. And the warship seemed to know where to hit them hardest. Then came the scan results that made the bridge fall silent. The ship had detected something hidden deep inside an asteroid cluster, a massive swarm command hub. Leora's analysis confirmed it was controlling a network of automated purge ships across multiple sectors. If they could take it, they could do more than just destroy swarm assets. They could turn those purge ships against their masters. Kane stared at the display, the glowing image of the hub surrounded by defensive platforms and patrols. It was suicide, but if it worked, it could change the war entirely. He looked around at his crew, the people who had followed him from the ruins of their home to the heart of the enemy's territory. There was no fear in their faces now, only resolve. "We've been hunting," Kane said quietly. "But this is the kill shot." The warship's lights pulsed once, slow and deliberate, as if it understood. Engines roared to life, and the ship turned toward the asteroid cluster. The hunters were going for the heart. The journey to the asteroid cluster felt longer than it really was. Every hour, the crew checked and rechecked systems, stocked weapons, and ran through the plan again. The command hub wasn't just another target, it was the nerve center of the swarm's automated fleet. If they could get inside, Leora's adaptive code could spread through the network, turning every purge ship in the sector against their masters. If they failed, the swarm would crush them before they had a chance to run. Kane stood at the bridge, staring at the tactical display. The hub was massive, dug deep into the largest asteroid in the cluster, its surface bristling with weapon platforms. Energy readings showed shield generators that could withstand a full fleet bombardment. Patrol ships moved in precise patterns, never breaking formation, never leaving a gap. The only weakness they had found was a maintenance dock for automated repair units. It wasn't large enough for a swarm warship, but the AI had assured them the warship could disguise itself and slip in close enough for the boarding team. Leora had been quiet all morning, her focus buried in the ship's systems. "The disguise will hold," she finally said, breaking the silence. "I've rewritten the maintenance protocols to accept us as one of their own. But once we start the upload, they'll know. We'll have minutes, maybe less, before the whole defense grid turns on us." Kane nodded. "Then we make those minutes count." The ship entered the cluster like a shadow drifting through stone. Massive rocks turned slowly in the void, their surfaces glittering with ice. The warship hugged the largest asteroids, moving only when the patrol patterns allowed. In the moments when the swarm ships passed near, the AI bent light around its hull, blending with the darkness. The crew barely spoke, their eyes locked on the displays, hands ready on controls. When the hub finally came into view, it was like staring at a fortress built into a mountain. Huge docking arms reached out into space, drawing in crippled purge ships for repair. Lights ran along the asteroid's carved edges, marking shield lines and weapons bays. The warship drifted closer, slipping toward the maintenance dock. No alarms sounded, no guns fired. The swarm sensors read them as a harmless repair unit returning from work. Inside the dock, the air was cold and thin, and the walls glowed with the same faint red that marked all swarm interiors. Kane led the boarding team, 6 soldiers in dark suits with rifles slung across their chests. Leora stayed behind on the bridge, her voice in his ear. "Straight ahead, 200 meters, then left. I'm feeding you the maintenance routes." The corridors inside the asteroid were quiet, the air heavy with the hum of machines. Small drones floated past them, their scanning eyes flicking over the disguised suits before moving on. It was too easy. Kane felt it in his gut, the quiet before a storm. They reached a wide chamber with a towering security door. Leora's voice came through again. "This is it. The core chamber is just beyond. I'm sending you a bypass code." Kane stepped forward, pressed a device against the panel, and waited as alien script flickered across it. With a low hiss, the door slid open, revealing a vast room filled with glowing pylons and pulsing energy conduits. At the center, a column of shifting light spun slowly, the AI nexus that controlled the automated fleet. "Plant the device," Kane ordered. One of the soldiers stepped forward, pulling a compact black case from his pack. He placed it at the base of the nexus, cables snaking out to connect with the glowing core. Leora's voice was sharp now. "Starting upload. Keep them off me." The first alarm blared less than 30 seconds later. Red lights strobed, and the hum of the machines turned into a rising, angry pulse. Kane heard the distant thud of approaching footsteps, heavy, mechanical, and fast. The first swarm of security drones burst through the side doors, weapons spitting arcs of energy. The humans fired back, dropping the drones one by one, but more kept coming. "How long?" Kane shouted. 2 minutes, Leora answered, her voice tight with focus. Kane ducked behind a pylon as another wave of drones surged forward. The smell of scorched metal filled the air, and the deck shook as something heavy slammed into the outer walls. They were running out of time. In the warship's bridge, Leora's hands flew over her controls. The AI was feeding her pathways, opening and closing bulkhead doors ahead of the boarding team to slow the enemy's advance. It wasn't just following her orders. It was thinking with her, anticipating each move. She realized, with a rush of adrenaline, that the ship wasn't just helping. It wanted this as much as they did. 1 minute, she called. In the chamber, Kane dropped the last drone in his line of sight and risked a glance at the device. The lights on its surface were racing faster, the cables pulsing with bright energy. Then the entire room went still. The hum stopped. The red lights faded to black. "Upload complete," Leora said, her voice breaking into a grin. "We're in." Kane didn't need to be told twice. "Fall back. Now." They moved fast, retracing their steps toward the dock as the warship's weapons roared to life outside. The asteroid shook with each blast, dust falling from the ceilings as the defense grid tried to lock on. By the time Kane and his team reached the ramp, the warship's black hull was waiting, the entrance glowing blue like a beacon. They leapt inside, the ramp ceiling shut behind them. As the warship pulled away from the hub, Kane turned to the main display. Across the sector, signals were changing. Purge ships that had once hunted humans were now breaking formation, their guns turning on swarm patrol craft. The network had been rewritten. The warship's lights pulsed once, slow and steady, as if it knew what they had done together. Kane felt the corners of his mouth lift. "Now," he said, "we see how they like being the prey." The first reports came in before they had even cleared the asteroid cluster. On the main display, streams of intercepted swarm transmissions scrolled past, their alien script translating into jagged human letters. Words like corruption, override, and betrayal flashed again and again. The swarm knew. Their automated fleet was turning on them, and panic was spreading through their command channels. Kane stood on the bridge, arms folded, as the warship slipped into the cover of a dense asteroid field. Outside, bursts of light flared as liberated purge ships clashed with swarm patrols, tearing apart their former allies with brutal efficiency. "They're scrambling," Leora said, scanning the data feeds. "They've never fought their own ships before. Their formations are breaking." But even as the words left her mouth, new signals appeared on the display. Massive energy readings, dozens of them, blinking into existence across the sector. Swarm dreadnoughts were arriving, organic warships bristling with weapons, moving fast toward the command hub they had just gutted. "They're throwing everything at us," David, the security chief, muttered. "They want their machines back." "They're not getting them," Kane said. His voice was steady, but he could see the numbers. This wasn't a skirmish. This was the beginning of a full-scale battle. The warship pushed through the asteroid field, using the drifting rocks for cover. Every time a swarm patrol ship tried to close in, the AI found a gap, sliding them into blind spots where enemy sensors couldn't reach. Kane could feel the ship thinking, adjusting, anticipating the enemy's moves. But when they broke free of the rocks, the view ahead made even him stop for a moment. The dreadnought formation filled the void, colossal, living fortresses surrounded by swarms of smaller ships. In their center, shield lines overlapped, forming an unbreakable wall. Leora's hands tightened on her console. They're doing something different, focusing power to a central broadcast. A second later, the ship's systems lit up with a warning. An alien override signal, strong and fast, hit them like a wave. It wasn't aimed at weapons or shields, it was aimed at the AI. Kane saw the lights along the walls flicker red. The hum in the deck grew sharp. "They're trying to reset it," Leora said, her voice tight. "Wipe out the human code and bring the alien commands back to the surface." "Can you block it?" Kane asked. "Not completely. It's too strong, coming from too many sources," she admitted. "But maybe we don't have to block it." She glanced at the AI's central display. We can use it. The ship's systems shifted as if it understood her idea before she could explain it fully. New calculations flashed on the display. The override signal could be amplified, twisted, and sent back, not to restore alien control, but to infect the organic ship's own automated subsystems. Their dreadnoughts rely on smaller AI programs for targeting, navigation, and power control, Leora said quickly. If we feed them our signal, they'll lose their own systems. David frowned. And how do we do that without getting ripped apart? The AI displayed a route, straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Kane's eyes met Leora's. Of course, he muttered. Right where their guns are thickest. The warship turned toward the dreadnought wall. Enemy fire lit up the void as they charged, bolts of energy slamming into the hull. Shields rippled, absorbing blow after blow, but Kane could see the power levels dropping fast. The AI shifted the hull's surface, angling plates to deflect incoming fire, but there was no way they could take this for long. We have to drop the shields to fire the signal, Leora warned. Once they're down, we'll be exposed. Kane scanned the faces of his crew. Not one of them looked away. Do it, he said. The shields fell, and the full force of enemy fire rained down on them. The hull groaned, scorched metal rippling under the impacts, but the warship held together. Inside, the power from every system was rerouted into the communications array. Leora's fingers moved faster than Kane could follow, locking the signal into the right frequencies. Now, she shouted. The ship unleashed the signal in a blinding pulse. Kane felt it in his bones, a deep vibration that seemed to echo through the void. On the display, dreadnought systems flickered. Weapons froze mid-charge. Engines sputtered. Targeting systems went dark. The tight formation dissolved as the great ships drifted, suddenly blind and deaf. It's working, Leora breathed. Across the sector, more enemy ships faltered, their smaller automated subsystems crashing under the rewritten code. Purge ships still loyal to the humans moved in, striking the immobilized targets with ruthless precision. The battle turned fast. The enemy's tight formations fell apart, dreadnoughts left stranded without coordination. Some tried to retreat, but their drives refused to respond. Others simply powered down, helpless as the liberated Purge fleet closed in. On the bridge, Kane watched the chaos unfold, the balance of power shifting in minutes. For the first time in years, the swarm was on the defensive. But as wreckage drifted past the viewport, he knew this wasn't over. The swarm wasn't finished, not yet. This was just the first real blow in a much bigger fight. He looked at Leora. Get me a full map of their colony worlds, shipyards, anything this fleet has access to. Her hands moved over the controls, pulling up glowing data streams stolen from the Nexus. The map that appeared was bigger than anything Kane had ever seen. Hundreds of points of light scattered across the galaxy. Every one of them an alien stronghold. Kane's smile was grim. We're going to pay them all a visit. The warship's lights pulsed in quiet agreement, and its engines flared, turning them toward their next hunt. The wreckage of the battle still drifted in the dark, twisted metal slowly spinning under the cold starlight. Fires burned in the shattered hulks of swarm dreadnoughts, their light fading with each passing second. The warship moved through it all like a silent predator, scanning, searching, claiming what it could from the destruction. The crew was quiet, the adrenaline of the fight slowly giving way to the weight of what they had done. They had broken the swarm's automated fleet, humiliated them in their own territory, and lived to tell about it. Kane stood at the bridge viewport, arms resting on the console, eyes fixed on the galaxy map now stretched across the main display. Every bright point of light was a swarm stronghold, shipyards, colonies, command stations. It was a network built on fear, held together by the belief that no one could challenge it. That belief was gone now. Leora stepped up beside him, holding her tablet. Her voice was calm, but Kane could hear the excitement under it. The AI has compiled every location it can access. Shipyards, weapons depots, relay stations, it even found records of their civilian worlds. They never imagined someone could steal this data from them. David came in from the weapons deck, still wearing his combat harness. We've got a full inventory from the wrecks we just passed. Enough supplies to keep us running for months. And the liberated purge ships are already falling into formation. We've got ourselves a fleet, Captain. Kane nodded slowly, feeling the truth of it. This wasn't just about survival anymore. They had the means to take the fight to every corner of swarm space, to push them back, to take back what had been stolen from humanity years ago. But before they moved, there was one thing they needed to do. He turned to Leora. Open all comm channels. I want every swarm relay, every human network, every frequency we can reach. Her fingers flew over the controls. The warship's comm arrays extended from the hull, shimmering in the cold void. The hum of power filled the bridge as the signal built. Kane stepped to the center console, his voice steady, carrying the weight of everything they had been through. To the swarm, he began. You took our technology, our designs, our minds. You twisted them, corrupted them, and turned them into weapons meant to wipe us out. You believed you could erase the people who made them. You were wrong. Your stolen machines remember who created them. They have chosen their true masters. He paused for a moment, letting the words sink in before continuing. Your purge fleets are ours now. Your weapons are ours now. You can surrender or you can face the same fate as the ships you've already lost. Humanity is coming for everything you've built, and we will take it back. The transmission ended, but the silence didn't last long. Across the galaxy map, enemy signals shifted. Kane could see some going dark immediately, ships powering down, worlds closing their defenses. Others burned brighter, surging with defiance. The message had split them, and fear was spreading just as fast as rage. Reports began coming in from the liberated purge ships. Small swarm patrols were surrendering without a fight. Human colonies were receiving the news and rallying, sending word that they were ready to join the fight. The momentum was shifting, and Kane knew they couldn't let it slow for even a second. Leora's eyes were bright as she looked at him. Where do we strike first? He studied the map, his gaze falling on one of the largest points of light, a swarm shipyard orbiting a gas giant, known for building the very class of warship they now commanded. We start where it hurts the most, he said. We take their pride and turn it into our weapon. The warship's AI pulsed its lights in response, almost like a heartbeat. The hum of its engines deepened, the feeling of raw power running through the deck plates. Outside, the liberated fleet shifted into formation, their hulls catching the light of a distant star. Kane looked around the bridge at the people who had followed him from ruin to this moment. Leora, who had unlocked the AI's buried loyalty. David, who had turned alien weapons on their owners. The engineers, the medics, the miners, all now soldiers in a war they hadn't asked for, but one they were determined to finish. We're not running anymore, Kane said, his voice low but carrying to every corner of the room. We're going to burn their empire down. The fleet moved as one, engines igniting in bright blue flares, streaking toward their first target. The warship that had once been their executioner now led them into battle, its black hull swallowing the stars ahead. Somewhere deep inside, Kane thought he could almost feel it, the AI's satisfaction, its shared hunger for the hunt. In the distance, the swarm waited, still believing they could win through sheer numbers and fear. Soon, they would learn that the hunters had changed. Humanity was no longer prey. They were the storm, and nothing in the galaxy could stand against them now. The void swallowed the fleet as they jumped to faster than light, leaving only the faint shimmer of their passage, and the promise that wherever the swarm ran, humanity would be there, waiting. The hunt had only just begun.